special meeting and the May 28th meeting.
So moved.
It's also a special meeting.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Pio and seconded by Mr. Kennedy. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We'll move right on to the items for discussion and possible action for budget transfers. There are no budget transfers needed, correct, Pam? Okay, so we'll move on to the approval of the food service management company agreement renewal. Pam, I'll turn it over to you to discuss a little about that.
I did provide you with an explanation along with the motion that we're suggesting for this evening, but I just want to remind the board that we are in the midst of a 5-year contract. Our contract with Sodexo allows us to continue it with 4 renewals, so this will be the second of those 4 renewals. And this is really heavily regulated by the state of Connecticut, the entire renewal process. They even give us the maximum allowable change in the management and administrative fees. And as you'll see from my explanation, it is currently 4.6%. We were able to negotiate a lower fee with Sodexo. They really have been excellent partners through the years, and they've been here for decades. They know the district. I think they do a really good job. But they did agree to the 3.9% increase. And as I mentioned at the board meeting a few weeks ago, we really do feel this is a reasonable amount, particularly in light of the fact that they signed on to an annual guarantee, which honestly has become a little bit challenging for them. And what this basically means is that guarantee of $306,477 has to be where we end the year. And if we don't, they take it from their fees. And they are close to having to do that this year. So they're a little bit concerned about the guarantee, but nevertheless, they did work with us and they did give us a 3.9. And I will share that I've talked to some of my colleagues, and I think we've done pretty well because many food service management companies out there were not as good about negotiating those fees down this time around.
Are there any questions for Pam?
Is your mic on?
It's on, and Lou keeps telling me that it's just not working all that well, so I think we need to.
Any questions for Pam? No? Okay, so we are going to move to recommend that the Board of Education approve a 1-year food service management contract renewal with Sodexo that includes an increase of 3.9% in management and administrative fees pending required approval by the state of Connecticut.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mr. Henrich and second by Mr. O'Brien. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Let's see. We're moving on to the approval of the fiscal year 24 year-end balance set aside for Science of Reading program.
Sure.
Like to discuss.
I'll be happy to give you a little bit more information on this. It's a little bit more complicated. As you will recall, this is an unfunded state mandate that we are required to implement the Science of Reading through the Right to Read Act. As a result, this is a very significant cost attached to the implementation of this program. It was well over $2 million. Ms. Borges and I talked with our company representatives, and we were able to negotiate a full price of $1.5 million. And we are looking for various ways to fund this that will not as significantly impact our operating budget. If you recall, during the budget process, when we first presented the superintendent's request, there was $400,000 in there for Science of Reading for year 1, and we did find some grant funds. Actually, we freed up some funds in the Alliance grant simply because of the fact that we had some positions that became vacant through the year, so we had some savings there. So we were able to at least come up with the funding we needed for part of the first payment. We also have been allowed by the state to utilize any balance in our ESSER grant, which we're estimating to be about $300 to $350 right now, that we initially to set aside the $800,000 for science abatement specifically. Now, previously, when we developed this request to bring to you, we were planning to bring it to the town council for their financial approval. However, since that time, legislation was enacted, specifically Public Act 2445, that we are interpreting as provides for local boards of education to deposit unexpended funds into a non-lapsing account for educational purposes. So we believe we simply need to notify the town of the board's intent once the board approves the motion. Additionally, should the board want to guide us and chooses to set aside any additional funding beyond that, from our year-end balance, you can guide us accordingly, and we will determine our full balance by September. Then I'll go over the financials with you. Roughly, we're estimating about $1 million right now as our year-end balance. I do think it's gonna be a little more than that. But I know that's a lot of information with this, but it is a little bit unusual and a little bit more complex. But I do think the board asked us to do this last year, and there's a lot of hurdles that we have to make certain we're doing appropriately, because it is a multi-year contract. We make sure there's a non-appropriation clause. We're taking all the proper steps, and we couldn't have done this last year because we truly weren't utilizing the materials at that point. Now we are, we're in the midst of this. We have the professional development going on.
And we have the pilot, so we have schools that are already piloting the program, so now we can, do this. And in addition to that, this helps your future budgets, because we are signing a multi-year and paying for a multi-year contract for the inter-reading program based on the mandate. So I think overall that's a very smart decision for us to make, and the company, although I still think all of the reading programs that are mandated by the state are very expensive, I do appreciate that they came down from 2.3 million down to 1.5.
Any questions for Ms. Manchin? Mr. Hia?
Sorry. That's on, okay. Pam, so just so, I was taking some notes, and I know I asked you a couple. So this Public Act 2445, that's the one you referenced, that was passed this past legislative session?
Correct.
Okay, I was just asking, curious when it was gone. The unexpected funds up to the million, so this is this year's expected surplus at the end of the year, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Do we have a final number on that?
We do not, we won't until September.
We won't until September, okay. But you're expecting up to
We're expecting
between
over
800,000 and $1 million.
We're expecting it to be over $1 million.
You're expecting it to be over $1 million, okay. The encumbrance policy in the limits within the town and everything, does this new public act, again, first time hearing about it, I know you said your guys' interpretation is that you can take the unexpended funds. Is that outside of the encumbrance limits, or how does that work?
Okay, I really don't know what you're referring to, because I'm not aware of any encumbrance.
In terms of any return at the end of the year back to, as we've in the past, right? Return goes back to the town, we can put it in the account. This is new, obviously. Have you guys worked with the town and talking about this and talking this through?
I have a meeting set up with Ms. Sabo later in June to talk
Okay.
about a few different accounting processes, but I really didn't feel it was appropriate to reach out to the town until I was certain this was something the board wanted to do and approved. But if you
Okay.
read the Public Act, we no longer need to go to the town to set aside up to 2% of our year end.
So that's automatic across the state, up to 2%. Board of Ed across the state can keep up to 2%. That's
Yes.
it, no matter what.
No matter what.
No matter what.
As long
It
as
is pretty clear.
As long as it's set aside for something.
Set aside
Education.
for
Right.
educational purposes is exactly the wording, and the Board of Ed has to approve the spending at that point. It does not go through the town.
Meaning we just can't say we're gonna hold this 2% here for,
You could,
know.
no, you can.
It
The
just has-
language, I'll read it, an excerpt from it. A local Board of Education may deposit into a non-lapsing account any unexpended funds from the prior fiscal year from the budgeted appropriation for education, provided one, such deposited amount does not exceed 2% of the total budgeted appropriation for education for such prior fiscal year. Two, each expenditures from such account only for educational purposes. And 3, each such expenditure shall be authorized by the local Board of Education for such account.
What they were trying, what this legislation is doing, it changed the language to make it for any educational purpose. You used to be able to request from the town, but it had to be those buckets, right? The capital improvement, or special education, or technology, and now they're saying for any education purpose, and it is your choice. And that's how you set it aside. So, to me, this is a very responsible choice. We are using it for a state mandated reading program that we are required to do. We are helping our future fiscal budgets, so that we are able to not have to put it in for the next few years. It's a very, in my opinion, a very good and responsible choice for everyone to make.
And Heather, just to that point, I know this became it was an unfunded state mandate. When did that come out?
Last year, they went through all the 5 programs you could choose from, and they selected the program, and it has to be implemented by next year.
Okay, so that announcement was made in the past 6 to 8 months.
It was over a year.
That's been,
Yeah.
Thank you.
it's been about
Yeah.
2 years because
2 years?
you were told you had to choose by, I think it was July of 2022, 20 or so, and you could choose to apply for a waiver to extend from starting it. So that's when we did the soft launch of it, and then but by this next coming school year, it has to be implemented by state law.
And Pam, my last question, just were we budgeting for this 800,000 to $1 million prior to the surplus money being used?
No.
We had requested the 400,000
In the original
fiscal
budget.
year 25.
400K was requested.
And then we removed it
Right.
when we realized that we had money in the Alliance grant. So we could pay it over 3 years, but it's going to be 400,000 to your operating budget for each year rather than using the surplus.
Okay, thank you, Pam.
Just for clarification, I know we had discussed it multiple times initially it was gonna be like the K to 3 rollout and, but this would purchase it through K through 6, correct?
K through 6.
Pam, do you know how much of the purchase of this program comes out of Alliance?
310,000, then that.
And that money is available because of vacant positions?
Correct.
Yes.
We had a couple of people leave mid-year. We
Specifically?
had the accountability, leadership and accountability.
A Vaughn's position and Gil's position, the accountability and the DEI.
And we did have a couple of positions that were filled a little bit late. So
Yep,
that's it.
and we had to meet with the state to get approved to use the money, to do a transfer, to use the money for the reading program.
My next question, and you kind of touched on it, Pam, the House Bill 5, it was House Bill 5437, which now became Public Act 2445.
Yeah.
That was passed on May 21st. The local Board of Ed made a deposit rate, into a non-lapsing account. What is that non-lapsing account? Is it different than the ERF?
It would be different than the Education Reserve Fund, simply because the Education Reserve Fund has limitations and is controlled by the town. So the board would need permission if money was put into that account in order to take the money from it. So the way I see this, and again, I will be speaking with the town finance director for the logistics of it, but the way I see this, it would be a separate non-lapsing fund.
I'll just ask the question just because you said it, Pam. Is there any value in waiting till after you meet with Pam and talk this through, or because I'm not saying that to be a loaded question, just you said you're meeting with her, this is a new thing? Because you just referenced 2 different accounts, that's why I asked that.
I don't see any value added in waiting because I don't think it will change what we're suggesting the
Okay.
board does.
Okay.
And to me, this will just be an accounting process as far as the board and the town
Okay.
are, just have to work it out between us, which I'm sure we'll be able to.
Okay.
And the town is more than aware of the reading mandate.
Yeah, no, I'm not implying it, I'm curious, thank you.
I think logistically, there's 2 very different funds that we're talking about here. One is this 2% that can be used, and the ERF, which is much more concentrated and controlled by request of the town.
Yeah, I mean, whether or not the town chooses to do do some kind of ordinance change with the education reserve fund, but right now, the way the language of the education reserve fund is set up, we really are very limited on what we can use it for. So, I mean, we can work that out with the town, but I think all we're really asking you at this point is, do you want to earmark some of your year-end balance for this purpose? And if you don't, that's fine. It's just something that we have been working with the company, and we're trying our best to avoid those fiscal cliffs, and I feel like we have a lot of those coming up still with the $2 million allocation that we received from the town. Again, wonderful to have that support, but I'm just concerned about how much more we're going to be adding to our budget as we prepare it for fiscal year '26, and I hate to tell you that, but it's only like 3 months away.
I think it's really important for us to just remember that if you don't do this now, you are talking 400 or a little more than 400 in the budget every year for the reading program. So it's either do it now and have our years covered for multiple years, or we have to budget every year for it.
What would be the negative to that? I mean, I'm just talking out loud, right? In terms of budgeting annual operating expenses versus prepaying ahead 3 to 5 years, I mean, that's
I
what we're
see
talking
two
about.
potential negatives. I see the company coming back and saying, I offered you that contract,
Right,
you agreed
higher
to sign
cost.
multiple years.
Right.
You didn't, now you're not, we're gonna raise the cost, you're back up to 2.3 million, so now we're gonna be budgeting every year for that.
Right.
I also think getting the materials, having the professional development and everything organized ahead of time and not having to worry about doing it year by year to be able to plan ahead is helpful to your staff.
Hey, cost pricing, I don't disagree with Heather. I mean, it's a better price point. I agree. I'm more of a year by year exact budget type of person, maybe than Humbley, just from an operating expense standpoint. So that's kind of where my head is, but I understand what you're saying.
Mr. Cormick.
Thank you.
So, just to clarify, I think you guys have clarified it since, wanted to ask a question a few, 4 people ago. This eliminates about $400,000 of fiscal cliffs in the next 2 fiscal cycles, correct?
It
Which,
will
it's
eliminate
a bill we're gonna have, no matter what, we can get rid of it with excess funds we have right now due to Public Act 2425.
Right, you will not have to add
24,
to your
45.
budget for fiscal
Thank
year
you.
Mine's not specific, I'll wait till your financial report ties in with this, but it's not specifically this, so I'll hold off.
Mr.
So we're talking about $1 million surplus. It was about a year ago, our superintendent went back to the council and requested that he needed an extra $1 million to make things work. And because of that, the council met his request, and for the first time in 7 years, they raised taxes. And now, we have $1 million surplus. So, again, the numbers aren't always, the sky is falling, prognostications of the budget process are not always correct. And again, this $1 million surplus, which was an add-on and a gift that came from the council, we didn't need. And the council, for the first time in 7 years, had to raise taxes, which is sad. I've always said that if this board should not have a surplus. Last year, I had suggested that we take that $1 million and put it towards or $1 million over $3.5 million surplus last year, and we put it towards the reading program. We were told they wouldn't do that. So, I'm ecstatic that we are going to be able to save about $800,000 on this. I think it's a good expenditure. The only thing I would caution about this non-lapsing funding, pulling dollars out of surpluses, and not necessarily that we'll do it here, but encourages boards to overinflate their budgets, to pull money out at the end. It doesn't really create an environment where accurate accounting is the process. And then the next year, the council pulls the money out, we have a surplus, and we get into this big circular battle. You have extra money, we're gonna pull it out. So I would just encourage us to try moving forward, to try and be as accurate as we can with our budgets. But we have $310,000 in Alliance. You had some money for ESSER. How much is that?
We're estimating right now, but it's probably about 390.
390. So we're at about, that's about 700,000. So really we need 800,000. So I would,
That covers the whole cost.
yes, and then it covers the whole cost, which is awesome. We're
The
Say-
reason we said up to $1 million is because you're estimating ESSER, remember, we still have summer to spend ESSER, and if something happened in the summer and ESSER money was used for that, it may be up to $1 million, but right now, if everything goes as planned and nothing happens in the summer that causes us to use ESSER dollars in a different way, that's what we should have.
And when typically do we return our surpluses to the town?
Actually, the way that process works, it's usually when the town completes their audits, which quite frankly have been a little bit late in the last couple of years, but normally that's December 31st.
At the end of the year.
And that's the time frame when we return the funds, so.
Well, we never get the funds. I think there's a
Well,
misconception about that.
We,
We just
They-
take the money as we need it every 2 weeks when we do AP and payroll.
they keep the money that we tax the citizens for. Okay. So if we say we only spent we only needed 800,000, then we would have the opportunity at that point to not request. June 31st, I think, is our last day to request the expenditure of any dollar amounts, correct?
We've approved transfers in September for
You,
certain
and we will be
coverages.
bringing you some from special
Or August.
education, but yes, we encumber everything by June 30th.
Okay.
Any further questions?
I'll make the motion if you.
Go ahead.
So I'll move to, for the motion here, I'll move to recommend that the Board of Education approve the use of the district's fiscal year 2024 surplus unexpended funds up to $1 million for the cost of the implementation of the state mandated Science of Reading program. And I would just like to add in the motion, per specifically stated under the development and passage of Public Act 2445.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Pia, second by Mr. O'Brien. I think we'll take a roll call vote on this. Any discussion first? Further discussion? Okay, Mr. Pia?
I vote aye.
Mr. Brightman?
Yes.
Ms. Karpetian?
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien?
Yes.
Mr. Henrik?
Yes.
Mr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mr. Cormier?
Yes.
Ms. D'Angelo Powers?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Moving on to financial reports. It is the Ms. Mangini show now. Let's start with the financial report.
You have your financial status report through May, and as you can see, we have significant savings, as I've reported since November, in salaries. And of course, each month that goes by that we don't fill positions, that number is going to increase, as well as the corresponding benefits that go along with that. The other area of our budget that we've had a significant savings is in utilities, which I've also reported for the past few months, in that we have a company, DBS, that helps us come up with our budget projections, and they had added in an anticipated tax through PURA that did not materialize. So there's savings there, and if you recall, we took a big reduction to our utilities for fiscal year 25 as a result of that. So those areas primarily make up our savings, and a lot of those savings, of course, are being reduced by additional costs in special education. So we can absorb that, and we are estimating right now, as of May 31st, about $1 million. I honestly see that increasing to probably closer to 1.3. And again, there's a lot of variables here. I know it's June, and you might think that we should be at a point where we know exactly where we're going to end the year, but I still don't know what our legal expenses will be. We still are waiting for 2 months of utility bills, and quite frankly, something very unusual this year. We have a lot of staff taking unpaid time, including teachers, over the last few weeks, which will add up. And as we actually unencumber our payroll encumbrances, we will start to see some additional savings being added back. So I want to make certain you understand that, but at the moment, I feel $1 million is definitely going to be available, and probably more.
I have a quick question for you. Just looking at the supplies and materials line, while it's kind of insignificant to the balance, but gas prices and electricity rates and all of that?
Yeah, I think our electricity rates are set. They did those, we go with it, we, collaborate with the town.
Right.
But I've been talking with the town purchasing agent because for some reason, I really need the town to work with the Board of Ed a little bit more in getting on a better cycle. Right now, our cycle is November 1 through October, and we don't get that price until September when we're in our budget year. So I've been speaking with Phil Ryan, and I'm cautiously optimistic that we're going to be able to change that going forward. Because in my past lives, I was always outbidding in December for the following fiscal year, so I got that number.
We don't know what we're looking at for next
We
year
do
for
not.
rates.
So we estimate it there. And most of the savings that, even though it's a little bit deceiving, it's the supplies and materials, that's primarily from the natural gas.
Right, that's what I'm asking. Okay, any further questions from Ms. Mangini, Mr. O'Brien?
Off the top of your head filled with numbers, do you know how much we have to spend on unfunded mandates, all unfunded mandates?
No, I actually don't, but my group, Connecticut Association of School Business Officials, actually keeps a white paper on that, so I will be happy to try to get an updated
Love
one.
to see that.
It's significant.
We did have like a 60-page report at some point of unfunded mandates.
It's significant.
It's significant, yeah.
I think we just have to keep going over after our state reps to keep fighting.
And that would be helpful to have, if you could get it for our board meeting, if our state reps do come, perhaps we can have an opportunity to speak to them on those issues.
Any further questions from Ms. Mangini? Ms. Gallagher?
I'm not sure if, Ms. Borges or Ms. Mangini. You hit upon the point that we will probably, due to some other accounts, right, be able to fund the over budget special education costs. If for some reason, can you remind me, I know you've shared it with us before, Pam, the high cost sharing, and you've spoken of this, right, like towns estimates an amount. What was that amount, and do we know if we've received that or more?
Let me address that.
Yeah.
In the town's budget, there's a estimated revenue for fiscal year 24 at 3.5 million, I believe, could be 3.6, but I think it's 3.5. And we are on, they may have received it, I didn't check this week, but they will probably receive closer to 4 million.
So about $500,000
But
more than estimated.
we budget, they keep it, we budget like they already gave it to us.
Right, but just for clarification, like, say we did not have that money to cover,
Yes. I would have to
This
ask you guys
overage.
to request it from the town.
the town would then have to provide the extra $500,000 in this case that they received from the state.
They'd have to fund whatever deficit we were in.
Okay,
There is-
I just wanted to,
For special education.
right, for special education, right, but that's where the area that we're overage in. Okay,
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify, okay. I don't wanna end up in a situation like some other towns.
Yes.
But we are covered with the
As of right now.
additional million.
And in
Just so
defense
we're
of those
clear
other
on the
towns,
record.
the town did pay the special ed portion of that deficit.
No, I know that, I'm just saying, yes, we are covered at the moment, God forbid any other unforeseen things happen, that safety net is there. Okay, thank you.
And to add to that, you handed us this handy dandy chart, and the trend of special education is on the rise for the past 10 years. So or 20 years, I don't foresee it probably gonna be dropping anytime soon. So, sorry.
I thought you would all enjoy the visual. You've gotten my numbers on every one of your reports, but to actually see it may help you understand, although we wanna budget perfectly all the time, you can't plan for an increase like this. When you start your
You're not
year.
gonna copy that, it was handed out at the beginning.
Sorry.
It's the number of special education students.
When we start our year at 1,217 and we ended at 1,383, that is a significant impact. And that is a significant financial impact you would have a really difficult time planning for.
this year's, that line would be well below.
You can see there's 2 years, there's 2 different years in which we had that spike. And when the first one happened, we thought that was just COVID. People just moved out of the city and came here, and we thought it was just COVID. But it's clearly something that isn't just COVID.
What do you think happened in 2022 where there's this big drop there?
A large graduating class.
Oh,
So there's
Thank
two,
you. Graduation.
there's a couple impacts. So that was a large graduating class that did not partake in the 23. So the new mandate, you know, where students stay with us now until they are 23, also adds to your numbers because they're not exiting on their 22nd birthday. They stay through that year regardless.
Okay. Any further questions on the chart? Then we can move on to the grant report. Ms. Manjeri?
Yeah, since you just saw this report, a couple of weeks ago, I will tell you there's really not that much that has changed, and we are continuing to ensure that we are spending down the funding that will, end on June 30th of 2024. And we monitor all of these grants on a regular basis. So, if you have any questions, I'm happy to address them.
Are all schools remaining Title I for 24-25?
We will determine that when we get the application and the numbers. We have 2 new assistant superintendents in teaching and learning, so I think we need to give them an opportunity to really review that in September, so we will come back.
Any other questions on the grant report? Okay, we'll move on to the special education report, which we touched on a little bit.
Yep, you've touched on it, so you can see in the areas we have a deficit, you can see that our current number right now is 1,383, and I wanna make sure that, I'm also clear on the numbers that I show you. The numbers I give you, are the numbers of students in district that we are servicing. So our numbers, when I go on CT SEDS, are actually 1,403, because then you include the students you service that are at magnet schools and the out-district placements that we still service as well. But these are what's in our building. So, because this is pulled off Power School based on their enrollment.
And I assume that number changes daily with pending.
It does. Yep. It changes daily. It will continue to change throughout the summer because in addition, it's birth to 3 students that we welcome into our preschools, and those numbers will continue to change. It'll also change because people will leave the district, and it will change because, you know, we have a graduating class.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Borges on the special ed report? All right, we'll move on to the food service report.
Yes, you have the food service report for March. Again, we have continued to trend very favorably, and we continue to work on our spend down plan. We also have to complete a paid equity meal form that I will be meeting with Ms. Rosa, I think later this week or next week. I can't even remember my calendar. But that is a form that's required by the state that we complete annually to determine what the price of our lunches should be. And I will give you a heads up, my guess is we are probably going to be pushed to increase it. If you recall, 2 years ago we were supposed to, but because of COVID, coming out of COVID and people struggling financially throughout the state or community, we decided to hold on it, but I have a feeling we're probably gonna bring a recommendation to you, so stay tuned for that.
In bringing that up, we had a discussion, can't remember when it was, one of the last couple of meetings, about the state allowing us to use our balance in the food services account to cover the balance owed to the food service account.
That's correct.
How is that working, and do you have an idea of what our balance is now? You may not know the number off the top
I
of
do
your head.
actually, it's a little under $79,000, so it did not jump up as much as we thought. We thought it was gonna be closer to 100 by the end of the school year. We submitted the necessary paperwork to the state. We're talking to them to clarify a couple of things, and we're hoping that they'll approve it, but we're waiting for that formal approval from the state.
Not to add an extra thing to do here, but can we maybe add that number to the food services report so
Yeah,
we can
maybe.
kind of monitor that
Sure.
through the year? That would be great. Any other questions on the food services report?
we're down a couple of students. And if you look month to month, we have maybe 2 less at Chapel and 3 more at this school. So there really hasn't been anything significant. We continue to move along with new registrations for next year. So far, we're pretty much on par. We're not seeing any real big spikes, but